Welcome back for a new tier list. This time in honor of MK1, releasing in just about 2 weeks from now. With that said, we are looking and I am going to be doing tier of, in my opinion, the Mortal Kombat franchise. Now keep in mind, I will not be doing, however, the Game Boy Advance MK games. Reason? I have never played either of the two GBA games, so with that said, everything else I can honestly say I have tried, so I can give an honest evaluation, in my opinion. So with that said, first up, starting it all, the original Mortal Kombat. For me, and by the way, quickly mention, in total there are 6 tiers I customized. The bottom tier is called the Tarkatan tier. Then you have the Revenant tier. Then Sorcerer tier. Then Demigod tier. Then Elder Gods tier. And the last tier is called the One Beyond tier. Or rather, the One Being tier. So with that said, first up, MK1. Arguably, I like it more than some people out there. And for me, coming in at number, or rather for me, MK1, the original MK1, I give to the Revenant tier. Second to bottom, I still think it's not quite material for the very bottom tier. Overall, yes, it has not aged well by far, which is why it gets second to lowest tier. I still have a little nostalgia just to keep me from putting all the way at the bottom, because it would really be the first of its kind of a more mature style fighting game for the time frame it would come out. The next we would see the first sequel, the sophomore release, which would end up surpassing everything in the first game. Now, personally, I don't have quite as heavy nostalgia for MK2 as many people out there. MK3 was really the game that got me big into the series. For me, though, I give MK2, which was released in 1993, I give it the Sorcerer tier. But with that said, next up, we have the Vanilla MK3, though I definitely look back at this game more fondly than many people out there, I would say, for the most part. For me, MK, even Vanilla version, MK3 tier gets Demigod tier. More or less the equivalent to A-Class, or A-tier, if you will, for the most part. And yeah, I think very fondly back to this, especially the OST soundtrack and everything is great. Then we would get an updated version. Now, I'm basing strictly on the version, home console-wise, that I played. And that is, the Genesis version, has it played necessarily the greatest? No, it has not. But with that said, for me, Ultimate MK3, released, by the way, also in 95, ends up getting Demigod tier, just like regular Vanilla 3. Now, with that said, next we have Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Now, a lot of people look back at this game more fondly than probably myself, as the load times and everything in the game, especially the PS1 version, is definitely inferior, has way too much load times and stuff, making the game almost to an extent unplayable. Personally, I prefer, heck, I tend to play MK3 Vanilla more than I play Trilogy, as the load times are like half of what Trilogy is, because a lot less content overall and stuff, so at least it's more tolerable. Now, MK Trilogy never, I believe, got an actual arcade release, unlike Ultimate MK3. For me, at the end of the day, though, I personally give MK Trilogy Sorcerer tier, or basically the equivalent to like B or C tier. Also, of course, was released in 1996. Also, I want to mention the next game is on the Revenant tier, second to last tier. Released in 1997. I currently do not have it physically, unfortunately. I played it back in the day on the Nintendo 64. Maybe it's one of the reasons. And overall, it definitely has not aged well, though. It's not actually a fine game, it's a platformer, weirdly enough. And that is Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. Comes in at Revenant tier. Next up, we are now skipping to basically what Mythology Sub-Zero was leading to, Mortal Kombat 4. Now, I look back at this game much like vanilla MK3. I look back at MK4 much more fondly than many people out there, as the fact I went out all the way to have the game on PS1, N64, and of course later on the improved version for the Dreamcast, MK Gold. So with that said, and also, by the way, the music in the background is also from Mortal Kombat 4. I feel the OST is somewhat underrated. I don't hold it quite as high tier as MK3, but I definitely hold it up there. But yeah, game-wise, I really love MK4. For me personally, MK4 is ranked, though, at the end of the day, at Sorcerer tier. So basically B tier for regular PS1 and N64 versions. That's what it gets at the end of the day. However, then we get the much improved superior version with 5 more additional characters added, new pieces of music added, and on top of it, we would also see new other elements as well as new stages and other stuff. And definitely, I think, has a little bit better cinematic feel, at least to even the over-the-top cheeseball endings and stuff you get story-wise. I still love it for what it is. For me, I give Mortal Kombat Gold demigod tier, basically A tier, is MK Gold for me, as I have a heavy amount of nostalgia for this game, far more than many people out there. At the end of the day, I love this game, and I always will love it. But yeah, and that was also released in 1999, weirdly enough. Next up, we are skipping out, though first I want to mention, unfortunately, a game that I hold at the very bottom of this, and that is the only game that is in Tarkatan tier, or basically F tier, more or less, you might as well call it. And that is a game that was released exclusively to the PS1 on the year 2000. And that is a game called Mortal Kombat Special Forces. There would be a couple of characters that would debut in that game, like Jarek and stuff would be in it, which of course was previously in MK4. Also, the debut of actually the character Trimmer actually came from this game, weirdly enough. But yeah, for me, it's at the bottom. Is by far the worst game in the MK series, so it's not even a fighting game. More of a action game, if anything. Next up, we are now going on. We are now in the year 2000. We are now actually in the year 2002. The release of the first of the 3D era of Mortal Kombat, which of course would be released on the GameCube, the original Xbox, and of course the PlayStation 2. Personally, I do look back at this game a little bit more fondly now than I did before. Arguably, Moloch was one of the reasons I didn't play Arcade Tower that much, because Moloch was annoying as crap. But the side, like story stuff, like Conquest mode in the game and stuff, which help add a lot of extra layers and world building for other worlds and universes. Like you would see the debut of awesome vampires, other demon creatures and stuff from other realms would debut. This would expand the lure in the universe of Mortal Kombat greatly. Plus, it was a cool idea having Quan Chi and Shang Tsung join forces, though that was actually originally um, had a special like couple episodes in there in the series Conquest, which was on TNT, which you can watch here on YouTube and some streaming services. But overall, Deadly Alliance, I do have a special soft spot for it, which is why it gets sorcerer tier. Basically, it's mid tier for me. Next up, released in 2004, is one of only 3 games that I have in the 1 being tier list, and that is Mortal Kombat Deception, arguably the best of the 3D era, and I still hold this very highly. In fact, it was my number 1 Mortal Kombat game for basically a decade. But yeah, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, MK Deception holds a really special place for me, as well as many other people out there, I would say. But with that said, on to the next. Next up will be the next and the last non-fighting game for Mortal Kombat, all the way up until now, unfortunately, but is a game I hold pretty highly. This game was released in 2005 on the PS2 as well as on the original Xbox, and it is a superb, great, really fun game, honestly, and starting to go up in price in recent years. It is called Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, released in 2005. A great game I highly recommend to many people out there, in all honesty. With that said, the last 3D era, unfortunately, would come to an end in 2006 with Armageddon. And, overall, one heck of a roster. I have very mixed opinions on Armageddon for the most part, but at the end of the day, I give Mortal Kombat Armageddon, honestly, Elder God tier. I still think it's one of the strongest Mortal Kombat games of all time, but to each their own. And I actually thought the Conquest story mode with Taven actually was pretty fun for the most part, in all honesty. Then we go to the last of the Midway era of Mortal Kombat with Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. Definitely a very despised game. As years have gone on, I have come to look back at the game a little more fondly than many people out there. At the end of the day, I give Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, honestly, which of course was released in 2008, by the way, I actually give it Sorcerer tier. For me, I put it on B tier. I don't think it's as awful as a lot of people talk or treat this game like. I think it's overly hated personally, as basically the same way I feel when it comes to the games like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and others. I don't think this game honestly deserves near the hate it gets. Dark Han isn't really a great fusion boss of sorts, but with that said, still, it actually can be a pretty fun cheeseball of a game. And from time to time, I will find myself occasionally replaying the game, just out of a weird fondness for it. With that said, then in 2011, we would see the reboot to Mortal Kombat. Now, in my personal opinion, I think this is maybe the most overrated Mortal Kombat. Do I like it? Oh, most definitely. For me, Mortal Kombat 2011 is in Elder God tier. I hold it at the same level as Shaolin Monks and Armageddon. Personally, second to top tier. It's still very high up there for me personally, in the second highest tier. Even if I do think it's very overrated, I'm still amazed to this day I can actually find people on PlayStation online and stuff on the PS3, weirdly enough. I can still find people playing this game to this day. And that shows the longevity of the game, as the fact it's 12 years old and people are still playing it online. It's kind of crazy. Then we go to MKX, which was released in 2015. Now, of course, I unfortunately do not have a physical copy of the game. I strictly have it digital only. As I will get into it a little bit later on, when the MKXL will be released and picked it up digitally for $9.99, I'll say $10. More than worth it for all the content you get in it. And overall, I love MKX. It remains my favorite Mortal Kombat game. It's pretty much held my top spot since probably for about 6 years now. It's been my number one. But with that said, from I definitely hold it on the 1B tier, along with Mortal Kombat Deception and The Last, released in 2019. I also hold on the top tier. With Mortal Kombat 11. Now, if I'm strictly based on the Switch version of the game, I would probably put it at maybe Demigod tier or Elder God tier, around that. So around actually like B or A. But with the regular one I predominantly play, yeah, I'm gonna have to give it at the end day the equivalent to S tier, along with Deception and MKX. Mostly because of the story mode and some awesome guest characters. Specifically, characters like Terminator were fun, Joker was awesome, but of course, overall, Spawn being the biggie for me. But with that said, that is my tier list for the Mortal Kombat games in honor of the upcoming MK1 in about 2 weeks. But with that said, stay safe, and I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.